I was standing in front of the refrigerator when I heard the sharp shout. "Don't even think about touching that food. Marcus's family is coming for dinner." I froze, a package of fresh deli meat still in my hand. I looked back and saw my daughter, Jade, standing in the kitchen doorway. Her arms were crossed, her gaze was hard, and her mouth was a thin, tight line I didn't recognize. I had filled that refrigerator just hours before. I had spent nearly $200 of my own money. At 69, with knees that crackle every time I climb the stairs and a back that aches every morning when I get up, I had carried those heavy grocery bags from the car. But I didn't say any of that. I just looked at her, waiting for an explanation, waiting for her to tell me it was a joke, to laugh and hug me like she did when she was a little girl. She didn't. "If my wife said it, that's how it's going to be." The voice came from the hallway. It was Marcus Sterling, my son-in-law, the man my daughter chose to share her life with. Tall, always impeccably dressed, always with that smile that never quite reached his eyes. He walked up and placed his hand on Jade's shoulder, a possessive gesture, like marking territory. I still held the deli meat. "Mom, you heard right. I need you not to touch anything in that refrigerator. Nothing. My in-laws will be here in 2 hours, and I can't serve them just anything. This is important to me." Her in-laws, her husband's family, were more important than me. More important than the woman who gave birth to her, who fed her when she was a baby, who stayed up thousands of nights when she had a fever, who sold her own jewelry to pay for her business school tuition. "I understand, sweetie." That was the only thing I said, because something broke inside me in that moment. It wasn't a loud fracture. There was no explosion or screaming. It was silent, like a dry branch snapping, a barely noticeable but definitive crunch. I put the deli meat back into the refrigerator, slowly closed the door, wiped my hands on my apron, and smiled. I smiled because, in that moment, I understood something. I understood that my daughter no longer saw me as her mother. She saw me as an obstacle, as someone who was surplus, someone who needed to be gotten rid of. And I smiled because I decided that if they were going to treat me this way, then I too would start making my own decisions. "I'm going to my room. Enjoy your dinner." I walked toward the stairs. I felt their eyes boring into my back, but I didn't turn around. I climbed each step with my back straight, my head held high, though everything inside me was trembling. I reached my room and closed the door. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the same bed where I'd slept next to my husband, Frank, for 30 years, where I had cried when he died 10 years ago, where I was left completely alone until Jade convinced me to come live with her. "This is your house too, Mom. You'll always have a place with us." That's what she told me 2 years ago when I sold my small house to help her with the down payment on this one, when I put all my savings into this property that was supposedly for both of us, for the family, so we could have a place to be together. Lies. It was all lies. I got up and walked to the window. From there, I could see the garden, the roses I planted myself, the small lemon tree I put in when I moved here, the herb pots I tend every morning. I did all of that with my own hands, with my effort. Downstairs, I heard laughter, music, the doorbell. The in-laws had arrived. I heard Jade greet them with that sweet voice she no longer used with me. I heard Marcus offering them drinks. I heard the clatter of plates, the clinking of glasses, and I was up here in my room as if I were a child sent to time out, as if I'd done something wrong. But my only crime was buying the food they were now enjoying. I sat down in my favorite chair by the window, the one I brought from my old house, the only piece of furniture Jade allowed me to keep. Everything else we sold or gave away because, according to her, this house had its own style and my old things didn't match. I took my cell phone out of my pocket. I looked at it for a moment, thinking about calling my sister, Tanya, to tell her what had happened. But what would I say? That my own daughter had forbidden me to eat in my own home? It would sound ridiculous. It would sound like I was exaggerating, like a dramatic old woman seeking attention. I put the phone away and just sat there, looking out the window, watching the sky darken. Hours passed. I heard when the in-laws left. I heard when Jade and Marcus went up to their bedroom. I heard when everything went silent. Then I carefully crept downstairs, making no sound. The house was dark, except for the small light over the stove. I walked into the kitchen. I saw dirty plates piled in the sink, wine glasses with residue, leftover food on the counter. My food, the food I bought and paid for, and of which I hadn't tasted a single bite. I opened the refrigerator looking for something to eat, but almost everything was gone. They had eaten nearly all of it. Only a few odds and ends remained in plastic containers. I grabbed one. It was cold rice. I ate it right there, standing up, in front of the open refrigerator, the light illuminating my tired face. And as I ate that cold rice, I understood something else. I understood that this wasn't new. This had been happening little by little, so slowly that I didn't notice, like when water is gradually heated and the frog doesn't jump out because it doesn't sense the danger until it's too late. Small slights, comments, the looks, it had all been part of a plan to push me into a corner, to make me feel like I was excess, that I was a burden, that I should be grateful to have a roof over my head. But that roof was mine too. I put $50,000 toward buying it, all my life savings, everything Frank and I had saved for years. I gave it to Jade because I trusted her, because she was my daughter, because I thought she would care for me as I had cared for her. I closed the refrigerator, washed the empty container, and put it away. I cleaned up every trace that I'd been there, like a ghost, like someone who had no right to exist in her own house. I went back to my room. I lay down, but I couldn't sleep. All night I thought, remembering, piecing things together. The last 6 months had been strange. Jade would ask me to sign papers that were supposedly from the bank, renewals, forms, boring things I didn't fully understand. And I would sign because I trusted her, because she was my daughter. But now I wondered what exactly I had signed. What documents were those? Why was Jade always so insistent? Why was she always in a hurry? Why couldn't I read them calmly? I got up before dawn. I left my room without making a sound. I went downstairs to the living room. I checked the desk where Jade kept important papers, but it was locked. I looked for the key in the obvious places, but couldn't find it. Then I went to my room and took out my personal document box. I looked for the original deed to the house, the document that proved I put my money here, that this house was also mine. It wasn't there. The deed wasn't where I had left it. I searched through every paper, every folder. Nothing. It had disappeared. And in that moment, I knew with total certainty, I had been robbed. My own daughter had stolen not only my dignity and my peace, but also my money, my future, and my security. I sat on the floor of my room with all my papers scattered around me, and I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't make a scene. I realized that crying wouldn't get anything back, that screaming would only make me look like a crazy old woman, that no one would believe me if I started accusing them without evidence. So I decided something else. I decided I was going to be smart. I was going to investigate. I was going to recover what was mine, but silently, without anyone realizing it, without warning them that I had discovered their betrayal. I put all my papers back, washed my face, combed my hair, and got dressed like any other day. And when Jade came down for breakfast, I was already in the kitchen making coffee. "Good morning, Mom." "Good morning, sweetie. Did you sleep well?" "Yes, very well, thank you." She smiled, a perfect smile, as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't humiliated me the night before, as if she hadn't stolen everything from me. And I smiled too, because now I knew how to play her game. The game of silence, the game of patience, the game of waiting for the exact right moment to act. I served her coffee, prepared her favorite breakfast, asked about her plans for the day. I acted like the perfect mother, the submissive woman she wanted me to be. But inside, I was already plotting. I was already thinking about every step, every move, about how I was going to get back my life, my house, my dignity. Because if I learned anything in 69 years, it's that revenge is a dish best served cold, very cold. And I had all the time in the world to prepare it. There are moments in life when you wonder at what exact point everything started to change, at what precise instant the person you loved turned into someone you don't recognize. I asked myself that question many times in the following days, and I always came to the same conclusion. It had all started much earlier than I wanted to admit. Jade was born when I was 26. It was a difficult pregnancy. I was on bed rest for the last 4 months. My husband Frank worked double shifts at the factory to make up for my absence from work. We were young, we had dreams, we had plans. And when she was born, everything seemed to make sense. She was a beautiful baby with big, dark eyes and a smile that lit up any room. I looked after her as if she were made of glass. I fed her, bathed her, and sang her the lullabies my own mother taught me. Frank adored her. He'd come home exhausted from work, but always found the energy to play with her, to make her laugh. I remember when she took her first steps. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner. She gripped the edge of the sofa and pushed herself forward. She took 3 wobbly steps before falling on her bottom, but she had done it. I cried with happiness. I called Frank at work to tell him. He left early that day just to see her walk again. We were happy. We didn't have a lot of money. We lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment. The furniture was old, the carpet was worn, but it was our home, and that was enough. When Jade turned 5, she started kindergarten. I got a part-time job at a local bakery to help with expenses. Frank was still at the factory. We worked hard. We saved what we could. We dreamed of buying a house someday, of giving Jade everything we didn't have. She was a good student. She brought home good grades, participated in school plays, had friends. She was a normal, happy child, or so I thought. Because now, when I look back, I see things I didn't see then. Small details I ignored because I didn't want to see problems where I believed there were none. Like when she was 8 and I asked her to share her toys with our neighbor's daughter. She refused, put all her toys in her room, and locked the door. I thought it was just a phase, that all children go through selfish stages. I talked to her. I explained the importance of sharing. She nodded, but she never shared her things. Or like when she was 12 and found $100 I had hidden in a drawer for emergencies. She asked if she could buy a dress she'd seen at the store. I told her no, that money was for something important. She got angry. She didn't talk to me for 3 days, and when she finally spoke to me again, it was as if nothing had happened. But the money had disappeared. I never found it, and she never mentioned it. I should have seen it then. I should have paid more attention. But I was so busy working, so tired at the end of the day, so focused on surviving, that I missed the signs. Frank died when Jade was 19, a massive heart attack while he was on the job. He collapsed in the middle of his shift. By the time he reached the hospital, it was too late. I got the call at 3 in the afternoon. My life split in two that day, a before and an after, a world with Frank and a world without him. Jade didn't cry at the funeral. That surprised me. She was serious, quiet, but dry-eyed. No tears. I asked her if she was okay. She said yes, that she was just processing everything, that she would cry later. But I never saw her cry for her father. The following years were difficult. Frank's life insurance was modest, enough to pay for the funeral and leave us a little savings. I kept working at the bakery, but now I also cleaned houses on weekends. I needed money for Jade's college. She wanted to study business administration. It was an expensive degree, but I was willing to do whatever it took. I sold Frank's tools, I sold his car, I sold some jewelry I had saved, all to pay the tuition, to buy her books, to give her money for transportation and food. I ate less. I wore the same clothes for years. I didn't buy anything unnecessary. Everything was for her. Everything. During college, Jade only came home when she needed money. She would call and say she had unexpected expenses, that she needed to pay for a project, that there was a special fee, and I gave her what she asked for, without questioning, without doubting, because she was my daughter, because I thought I was investing in her future. She graduated with honors. I was at the ceremony, proud, emotional, crying with happiness. It had been worth it. All the sacrifice had been worth it. Or so I thought. She quickly got a job at a large corporate firm with a good salary. She told me it was her turn to take care of me now, that she would repay everything I had done for her tenfold. And I believed her, because I wanted to believe her, because I needed to believe that my sacrifice had meant something. But the months passed and nothing changed. She kept asking for money for a course, for a business trip, for professional clothing, and I kept giving, because that was who I was, who I had always been, the one who gives, the one who sacrifices, the one who puts everyone else before herself. She met Marcus at work. She introduced him to me 6 months after they started dating. He was polite, well-dressed. He came from a family with money. He worked at the same place she did. He seemed like a good man, and I was happy for her. I thought she had finally found someone who would make her happy. They got married the following year, a large wedding in an elegant ballroom with over 200 guests. I paid my share, $15,000 that I took from my savings. Jade said it was the least I could do, that the groom's family was paying much more, that she couldn't look bad. And I paid, even though those dollars represented years of work, years of sacrifice. At the wedding, she barely saw me. She was busy with her in-laws, with the important guests. She exchanged maybe 2 words with me. She introduced me as her mother and moved on, as if I were just a requirement, an obligation, something to check off the list. The first months of marriage they spent in a small apartment. I would visit on Sundays, bring food, clean up a little, help wherever I could, but I always felt like I was in the way, that I was an intrusion, that they would have preferred I didn't come. Then they started talking about buying a house. Marcus wanted something bigger, something in a better neighborhood, but they didn't have enough money for the down payment. They needed $50,000. And they looked at me. "Mom, you have savings, right? You could lend us the money for the house. We'll pay you back little by little, with interest if you want. Plus, you could live with us. You wouldn't have to be alone anymore. It would be perfect. A family again." Jade told me that, and I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that she was including me in her life, that she was giving me a place in her home, that she finally valued me. I sold my house, the small house Frank and I bought after years of saving, the house where we raised Jade, where we were happy. I sold it and gave her all the money, the full $50,000. She promised to put my name on the deed. She promised the house would be ours together, that I would have my own room, my own space, that I would always be welcome. And I signed everything they put in front of me because I trusted her, because she was my daughter. But now I understand that that was my sentence, the exact moment I lost everything, the moment I stopped being the owner of my own life, the moment I became an unwelcome guest in what should have been my own home. The first few months in the new house were tolerable. Jade still kept up appearances. She greeted me in the mornings, included me in some conversations, allowed me to cook and participate in household decisions. But there was something strange, something I couldn't quite identify, an invisible tension that hung in the air every time I entered a room. Marcus worked late. He came home tired and shut himself in his study. Jade spent hours on her phone. I kept myself busy cleaning, cooking, taking care of the garden, trying to be useful, trying to justify my presence in this house that was also mine, though it felt less and less so. One day, I found some papers on the dining room table. They were bank documents. I saw them by chance while cleaning. It wasn't my intention to read anything private, but my name appeared on one of the pages, and that caught my attention. It was a document about the house's mortgage. I read quickly, trying to understand. There were numbers, legal terms I didn't quite grasp. But one thing was clear. My name was not on the deed as an owner. I only appeared as a reference, as someone who had contributed money, but not as an owner. I felt something cold run through my body. I picked up the paper with trembling hands. I read it again, slower, trying to find my name on the list of owners, but it wasn't there. Only Jade Johnson Sterling and Marcus Sterling appeared. No one else. I heard footsteps on the stairs. I quickly put the paper back where it was and continued cleaning. Jade entered the room and looked at me with that expression she had started using, that mix of annoyance and superiority. "What are you doing, Mom?" "Cleaning, sweetie, just cleaning." She took the papers from the table and left without saying more. I stood there with the cleaning cloth in my hand, my heart racing, 1,000 questions in my head. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept turning over what I had seen. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe my name was on other documents. On the original deed, Jade had promised to include me, that the house would be ours together. She wouldn't lie to me. She couldn't lie to me. But the doubt was planted, and like a weed, it began to grow, spread, and contaminate every thought. The following days, I started paying more attention, noting things I previously overlooked, like the times Jade asked me to sign papers without letting me read them properly. She'd say they were bank forms, renewals, boring things not worth reviewing, and I would sign, trusting her because she was my daughter. But now those signatures haunted me. What exactly had I signed? What documents were those? Why was there always such a rush? Why couldn't I take my time to read? One afternoon, while Jade was at work, I searched the living room desk. I needed to find the house deed. I needed to see my name there. I needed to confirm that everything was in order, that I was just being paranoid. But the desk was locked. I looked for the key in the obvious places: the kitchen drawer, the bookshelf, the entrance shelf. Nothing. The key didn't appear. I tried to open it with a paper clip, with a hairpin, but it didn't work. The desk remained locked, guarding its secrets, protecting them from me. Then I remembered that I had my own copy of documents. When I sold my house, I put everything in a special box: important papers, Frank's marriage certificate, his death certificate, payment receipts, and supposedly the deed to this house, the proof that I had put my money here. I went up to my room. I pulled the box out from under my bed. I opened it with trembling hands. I searched through all the papers, checked every document, every folder, every envelope. The deed was not there. It simply wasn't where I had left it. In its place was a receipt, proof that I had transferred $50,000 to Jade's account, but nothing else. No document proving my ownership of the house. I sat on the floor with all the papers scattered around me, trying to remember when I last saw that deed, where I had put it, who else had access to my room. And then I understood. Jade had a key to my room. I had given it to her myself so she could come in to clean when I wasn't around, so she could use the bathroom if theirs was occupied. I never thought she would use it to rob me, but now it was obvious. She had entered, searched through my things, taken the only document that protected me, and had destroyed or hidden it, or whatever she did with it. I put all the papers back in the box, closed it, and hid it in a different place, in the back of my closet, behind old boxes where no one would think to look. That night, Jade came home late from work. She carried a bag from an expensive boutique, new clothes, shoes, things that cost hundreds of dollars. I watched her unpack everything in her room, tearing off tags, trying things on in front of the mirror, happy, carefree. And I thought about my $50,000, about how that money represented years of my life, years of work, of sacrifice, of getting up early and going to bed late, of eating little to save more, of not buying myself anything, of living with the bare minimum, all to have security, to have something of my own, not to be a burden to anyone. And now that money was paying for her expensive clothes, her comfortable life, her big house, while I had nothing. Only a room they could take away whenever they wanted. Only a place at a table where I was less and less welcome. I went down to the kitchen to make myself some tea. I needed to calm my nerves. I needed to think clearly. I put water on to boil. I took out my favorite mug, the one I brought from my old house. A simple white ceramic mug with hand-painted flowers. Frank gave it to me on our first anniversary. I was waiting for the water to boil when Marcus entered the kitchen. He looked at me in that way he had started to use, as if I were something that bothered him, as if my presence annoyed him. "Gloria, I need to talk to you." I turned toward him. I waited for him to continue. "Jade and I have been thinking. This house is very expensive to maintain. The utilities, the taxes, everything is getting more expensive. And well, you live here, but you don't contribute anything. You eat our food, use our electricity, our water. Everything comes out of our pockets." His words hit me like buckets of cold water. Me, who had just filled the refrigerator with $200 worth of groceries. Me, who cleaned the whole house, who cooked, who took care of the garden, who did everything I could not to be a burden. But I didn't say any of that. I just looked at him, waiting for him to finish. So, we thought it would be fair for you to pay something, a monthly rent. Not much, just $500 to help with expenses. It's the least, really. Any room in this neighborhood costs twice that. $500 to live in the house that I helped buy, in the house where I put all my money, in the house that was supposedly mine, too. Of course, Marcus, I'll think about it. There's not much to think about, Gloria. It starts next month. Jade will send you the details. He poured himself a glass of water. He drank it slowly, looking at me as if waiting for me to say something, to protest, to refuse. But I remained silent, motionless, my empty mug in my hands. When he left, I turned off the stove. I didn't want tea anymore. I didn't want anything. I just wanted to go to my room, lock myself in, and process everything that was happening. I climbed the stairs. Each step weighed more than the last. I entered my room, closed the door, sat on my bed, and for the first time in a long time, I let the tears come. I cried in silence, my face buried in my hands, my body trembling. I cried for my naivete, for my stupidity, for having trusted so much, for having given everything without protecting myself, for having believed that a mother's love was enough. But after a while, the tears dried up, and something else appeared in their place. Something cold, something hard, something I didn't know I had inside. Rage. But not the hot rage that makes you scream, the cold rage that makes you think, the rage that plans, the one that waits, the one that acts at the precise moment. I got up, washed my face, and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw a 69-year-old woman, tired, with wrinkles, with gray hair, but with wide-awake eyes, filled with determination. I wasn't going to stand idly by. I wasn't going to let them rob me like this. I wasn't going to let them treat me like trash. I had given too much. I had sacrificed too much. And now it was time to get back what was mine. The following days were strange. I continued to do everything as usual. I woke up early, prepared breakfast, cleaned the house, tended the garden, but something had changed inside me. I no longer did it with love. I did it with strategy. Every movement was calculated, every word measured, every smile fake. Jade didn't notice anything, or maybe she didn't care. She went on with her life, her work, her outings, her shopping. She treated me like a piece of furniture, something that was there, but that didn't deserve attention. And I let her think that because it suited me. I needed them to drop their guard. I started observing everything more carefully. Their schedules, their routines, when they left, when they returned, where they kept important things, what conversations they had when they thought I wasn't listening. One morning, while cleaning the living room, I found Jade's phone on the sofa. She had forgotten it while rushing out to work. I looked at it for a moment. I knew her password. I had seen her enter it hundreds of times. 4 simple numbers, her wedding date. I picked up the phone. I unlocked it. My hands were trembling, but my mind was clear. I went into her messages. I searched for conversations with Marcus, with her friends, with her in-laws. I read quickly, taking mental notes of everything. There was a chat with her friend Samantha. Recent messages. I read them, my heart pounding. I'm almost done getting my mom off the title. The lawyer says in 2 weeks everything will be settled. Finally, I'll be able to sell this house and buy something better without her being able to claim anything. The words hit me like a fist. I read the message again and again, trying to process what I was seeing. She hadn't just taken me off the deed. She planned to sell the house I helped buy, and purchase another one where I would have absolutely no right. I kept reading. There were more messages from weeks ago. My mom is so naive. She signs everything I put in front of her. She doesn't even read it. Now just one more document and we're done. Problem solved. Problem. I was a problem to her, her own mother, the woman who gave her life, who raised her, who sacrificed her entire life for her. I was just a problem that needed to be solved. I took photos of all the messages with my own phone. My hands were shaking so much that some came out blurry, but but I took several of each one. I needed proof. I needed to document everything. There was another chat with someone named Keith Thompson, a name I didn't recognize. I opened the conversation. Ms. Sterling, as I mentioned last week, we have processed the documents you brought us. Your mother signed the waiver of rights to the property. Everything is in order. We just need her to sign one last paper, and the process will be complete. You can stop by the office whenever you like. A lawyer. She had gone to a lawyer. She had forged documents, made me sign my own condemnation, and I didn't even know it. I wrote down the lawyer's name, his phone number, the address of his office that appeared in the chat. Everything, every detail, every word. I continued checking. There were photos, scanned documents, copies of papers I had signed without reading them properly, contracts, waivers, assignments of rights, all there on her phone, like trophies of her betrayal. I took photos of everything, one by one, making sure they looked clear, that every word was legible. This was gold. This was what I needed to prove what they had done to me. I heard a car pull into the driveway. My heart stopped. I looked out the window. It was the neighbor. I kept checking the phone. I had little time. I didn't know when Jade would return. I found a folder labeled Mom Documents. I opened it. There were copies of my ID, my birth certificate, the deed to my old house, the transfer receipts for the money. Everything they needed to rob me was organized and filed there, like a criminal dossier. And then I saw something else. A recent document, a quote for a new house in another neighborhood, larger, more expensive. Dated last week. They were already looking for where to move. They were already planning to leave me out on the street. I took photos of everything. Then I deleted the call and message history so she wouldn't know I had been on her phone. I left it exactly where I found it. In the same angle, the same position. I went up to my room, closed the door, sat on the bed, and connected my phone to my old laptop, the one I brought from my previous house. I transferred all the photos. I saved them in a hidden folder. I made copies on a USB drive I had stashed away. I couldn't risk losing that evidence. While transferring the files, I thought about everything I had seen, about how my own daughter had planned my destruction with such coldness, with such precision, as if I were just an obstacle in her path, something that needed to be removed to move forward. I finished saving everything. I hid the USB drive in a safe place inside a box of tampons in my bathroom. No one would look there, especially not Marcus. I went down to the kitchen, put water on to boil, and prepared my tea. My hands were no longer trembling. My mind was strangely calm. Now I knew exactly what I was fighting against. I knew how deep the betrayal was, and that gave me power, because knowledge is power, and I now had both. That afternoon, when Jade came home from work, she was frantic. She was desperately searching for something. "Mom, have you seen my phone?" "No, sweetie. Where did you leave it?" "I don't know. I had it this morning, but I can't find it." I helped her look. We checked the living room, the kitchen, her bedroom. I acted concerned, supportive, like the perfect mother she thought I still was. "Here it is. It was between the sofa cushions." She picked it up with relief. She quickly checked her messages and calls. Everything seemed fine. She didn't suspect a thing. Why would she? I was just her naive mother, the foolish old woman who signed whatever was put in front of her. "Thanks, Mom." "You're welcome, sweetie." She went to her room. I stayed in the living room, looking out the window, watching the sky darken. But I no longer felt lost. I no longer felt like a victim. Now I knew exactly what to do. I spent the next few days investigating. I searched online for the lawyer, Keith Thompson. I found his website. His office was a 30-minute drive away. I read about the services he offered. Real estate, wills, contracts, exactly what Jade needed to rob me. I also looked up information about my rights, about what I could do if someone had tricked me into signing documents. I read legal articles, forums, testimonies of other people who had gone through similar situations. I took notes, saved links. I prepared myself. One afternoon, while Jade and Marcus were at work, I went to the bank, the same bank where we had processed the house mortgage. I asked to speak with an executive. A young woman in her 30s with a professional smile attended to me. "Good morning, ma'am. How can I help you?" I need information about a property. I'm a co-owner, but I don't have a copy of the documents. I want to know how I can get them. She asked for my ID. I handed it over. She typed something on her computer, then frowned. Ms. Johnson, according to our records, you do not appear as the owner of any property. That's impossible. I put $50,000 toward the down payment of a house. I have the transfer receipt. I showed her the receipt I had saved. She reviewed it. She typed more on her computer. I see the transfer here, but it was made to Jade Sterling's name, not as part of a co-ownership agreement. It was listed as a gift, a donation. Therefore, you do not have any claim to the property. Her words confirmed my worst suspicions. They had misled me from the beginning. There was never any intention of putting me on the deed. It was all a plan to take my money. Is there anything I can do? You would have to consult with an attorney, ma'am. We only handle the financial side. But if you signed documents waiving your rights, it will be difficult to recover anything. I thanked her. I left the bank and walked to a bench in the nearby park. I sat down and took a deep breath. The cold air filled my lungs. It cleared my head. Now I knew 3 things for certain. First, I had been legally robbed. Second, I had proof of the conspiracy. Third, I needed a lawyer, a good one who wasn't on Jade's side. I took out my phone and searched for attorneys specializing in family fraud. I found several. I read reviews, compared prices, wrote down numbers. I would call the next day. Now I wasn't alone in this. Now I had information. I had evidence. I had a plan. I walked back home slowly, thinking about every step, every move. Jade and Marcus still hadn't arrived. The house was empty, silent, like a stage waiting for the play to begin. And I was ready to act, ready to reclaim what was mine, ready to teach them that they had underestimated the wrong person. The next day, I waited for Jade and Marcus to leave for work. I dressed carefully. I chose my best clothes, a simple but presentable dress. I combed my hair and put on light makeup. I wanted to look respectable, trustworthy, like someone who should be believed. I took my purse. I put all the evidence I had collected, the printed photos, the receipts, the USB drive with all the information from Jade's phone, all organized in a folder. I left the house and walked to the bus stop. The trip downtown took me 40 minutes. I looked out the window the whole way, watching the streets, the buildings, the people busy with their lives, and I thought about how my life had come to this point, how I had gone from owning my own house to begging for justice. The office of the attorney I had found was in an old building. I climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. My knees protested with every step, but I kept going because this was important. This was my future. I knocked on the door. A secretary greeted me. I explained that I needed an urgent legal consultation. She made me wait in a small waiting room. There were old magazines on a table, cheap pictures on the walls, but the place looked clean, organized, professional. After 20 minutes, I was called. I entered an office where a man about 50 years old was waiting for me. Gray hair, glasses, a simple suit. He offered me a seat with a kind gesture. "Ms. Johnson, I'm attorney Charles Reed. Tell me what brings you here." And I told him everything from the beginning. How I sold my house, how I gave them $50,000, how they promised to include me on the deed, how they made me sign papers without letting me read them, how I discovered the betrayal. As I spoke, I took out all the documents, the photos, the evidence. He listened in silence, taking notes, reviewing every piece of paper I showed him. His expression was serious, concentrated. He didn't interrupt me once. He let me empty everything I had stored up. When I finished, there was a long silence. He continued reviewing the documents. He read the photos of Jade's messages several times. Then he looked at me. "Ms. Johnson, this is fraud, breach of trust, and possibly document forgery. Your daughter and son-in-law could face serious criminal charges. I just want to get back my money or my rights to the house, whatever is fair." "I understand, but I need to be honest with you. This is going to be difficult. You signed documents waiving your rights. Even if you did it without fully understanding what you were signing, the fact is, your signature is there. That complicates things. But I have proof that they tricked me. The messages, the conversations, it's all there. Yes, and that's good, very good. This demonstrates intent to defraud, premeditation. That helps us. We can file a lawsuit for fraud and nullity of documents, but I need you to understand that this could take time. Months, maybe a year or more. My hopes sank a little. A year. Could I survive another year in that house, enduring the contempt, the humiliation, paying rent for something that should be mine? How much would all this cost? My fees are $200 an hour. For a case like this, we're talking about approximately $10,000 in total. Perhaps more, depending on how complicated it gets. $10,000. I didn't have it. I only had about $5,000 saved. The last of a lifetime of work. He must have noticed my expression because he added, "I can work with you, Ms. Johnson. I can take a $3,000 retainer and we can settle the rest when we win the case, when you recover your money. But I need to be clear, if we lose, you would still have to pay my full fees." It was a risk, but what choice did I have? Stay silent and lose everything, or fight and maybe recover something? I accept. What do you need me to do? First, I need you to sign a contract with me. Then, we are going to request copies of all the property-related documents from the county recorder's office. We'll ask for certified copies of everything your daughter filed, and we'll prepare a formal lawsuit. How long will that take? About a month to gather everything. Then we file the suit. Your daughter and son-in-law will be served. They will have to respond. That's when things get interesting. They'll know it was me. They'll know I sued them. Yes, there's no way to avoid that. But, Ms. Johnson, you have the right to defend yourself, to fight for what is yours. Don't let fear stop you now. He was right. I had already come this far. I had already discovered the truth. I already had the evidence. I couldn't back down. I signed the contract. I gave him a check for $3,000, almost everything I had in the bank. He gave me a copy of everything. He explained the next steps. He told me he would keep me informed of every development. I left his office feeling strange, scared, but also relieved. I had finally done something. I had finally taken action. I was no longer just a victim waiting for things to get better. Now I was a fighter. I made the journey back home in silence, thinking about what was to come, how they would react when they received the notification of the lawsuit, what they would say, what they would do. I arrived home before them. I changed clothes, put all my documents in the secret hiding spot, and started preparing dinner as if nothing had happened, as if it had been a normal day. When they arrived, I greeted them as always. Jade barely looked at me. Marcus didn't even return my greeting. We ate dinner in silence, each in our own world. And I observed, storing every detail, every gesture of contempt, every moment of humiliation, because all of that gave me more strength to move forward. The following days were a waiting game. Attorney Reed called me every week to update me. He had requested the documents from the county recorder. He was reviewing everything, preparing the legal strategy. He asked me for patience. Meanwhile, I kept documenting everything at home. Every time Jade treated me badly, every comment, every slight, I started carefully recording conversations on my phone without them realizing it. I didn't know if they would be legally useful, but I wanted to have everything recorded. One day, a certified envelope arrived in the mail. It was from the county recorder's office, documents the attorney had requested. I took it before anyone else saw it. I hid it in my room. That night, I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were copies of everything. The deed to the house, only with Jade's and Marcus's names. The documents I had signed, waiving rights I didn't even know I had. Everything was there in black and white, proof of my naivete, my stupidity, how they had used me. But there was also something else. Inconsistencies, dates that didn't match, signatures that looked different. The attorney had marked several points with sticky notes. "This is useful. We can use this. Possible forgery." I felt a spark of hope. Maybe there was a chance. Maybe I could win this. 3 more weeks passed. Attorney Reed scheduled a meeting at his office. When I arrived, he had everything prepared on his desk, a pile of organized papers, legal documents, the ready lawsuit. Ms. Johnson, we are ready. I will file the lawsuit tomorrow. In 2 or 3 days, your daughter and son-in-law will receive the notification. I want you to be prepared for their reaction. It won't be pleasant. I know, I'm ready. I also need to warn you. It's possible they will try to intimidate you, pressure you to withdraw the lawsuit, or threaten to kick you out of the house. If that happens, call me immediately. We have legal resources to protect you. I thanked him. I left his office with a mix of fear and determination. In 2 days, everything would explode. In 2 days, there would be no turning back. That night, I barely slept. I thought about all the possibilities, all the ways this could go wrong. But I also thought about justice, about reclaiming my dignity, about showing them they couldn't just rob me and get away with it. The attorney filed the lawsuit on a Friday. He called me to confirm. It's done, Ms. Johnson. Now we just wait. The weekend was eternal. Every time the doorbell rang, my heart raced. But nothing happened. Jade and Marcus continued their normal lives, oblivious to what was coming. On Monday morning, the mail carrier arrived and rang the bell. I opened the door. He had 2 certified envelopes, one for Jade Sterling, one for Marcus Sterling. Lawsuit for fraud and nullity of documents. I signed for them. I looked at the envelopes for a long moment. This was the moment, the point of no return. I could hide them, throw them away, pretend they never arrived, or I could leave them where Jade would find them and face the consequences. I left them on the dining room table in a visible spot where they couldn't be missed, and I went up to my room to wait, to prepare for the storm that was about to break. Jade arrived home from work at 6 in the evening. I heard her open the door. I heard her footsteps in the entryway. And then I heard the silence, that heavy silence that comes just before the explosion. "Mom, get down here right now!" Her voice sounded different, strained, furious. But there was also something else, maybe fear or panic. I got up from my bed, took a deep breath, and walked down the stairs. She was standing in the living room, the open envelope in one hand, the lawsuit documents in the other. Her face was red. Her eyes were blazing with rage. Marcus stood next to her, holding his own envelope, looking at me with pure hatred. "What is this? What the hell is this, Mom?" She spoke each word slowly, as if she were trying to control herself, as if she were about to burst. "It's a lawsuit for fraud, for stealing my money and my rights to this house." "Stealing? We didn't steal anything from you. You gave us that money. You signed all the documents. Everything was legal. You tricked me. You made me sign things without telling me what they were. You promised me this house would be mine too, and you lied. You're crazy. You're completely crazy, old woman. Nobody forced you to do anything. You wanted to help, and now you pull this stunt." "I have proof, Jade. Messages, conversations, everything where you plan to sell this house and leave me out on the street, where you tell your friends I'm a problem that you're removing from the title." Her face changed. The color drained from her for a moment. She looked at me with something that might have been fear, but she quickly disguised it with more rage. "You went through my phone. You invaded my privacy. That's invasion of privacy, Mom. That's a crime. And stealing from your mother isn't? Tricking her, making her sign false documents, taking everything she owns, that's fine according to you?" Marcus stepped closer. His face was hard, threatening. He stood very close to me, trying to intimidate me with his height. "Listen closely, Gloria. You are going to withdraw this lawsuit right now, or you are leaving this house today, tonight, with nothing. Go see where you'll live. Go see who will take you in." "I'm not going anywhere. This house is mine too. I put my money here, and I'm going to fight until I get it back." "Your money? That money was a gift, a help. No one forced you to give it, and now you come here claiming we're thieves. You are ungrateful, after everything we've done for you." "What you've done for me? You have me paying rent in my own house. You forbid me to eat the food I buy. You treat me like trash. That's what you've done for me. Jade laughed, a bitter, humorless laugh. You know what, Mom? Do whatever you want. Sue us. Fight all you want. But I'm warning you, you won't win. We have better lawyers than yours. We have money. We have time. And in the end, when you lose, you'll be left with nothing. No house, no money, no dignity. I have no dignity left. You took it from me. But I'm going to get back everything else, even if it's the last thing I do. Go to your room. I don't want to see you. You disgust me. Her words hurt, but I didn't show it. I kept my face straight, my back rigid, and I climbed the stairs without looking back. That night, I heard them call Attorney Keith Thompson. I heard fragments of the conversation through the walls. They were scared, worried. The lawyer was telling them something they didn't like. I heard Jade scream and Marcus curse. I stayed awake late, listening, mentally documenting everything. This was just the beginning. I knew they would try something else, something worse, and I had to be prepared. The following days were tense. Jade and Marcus barely spoke to me. When they did, it was to insult me, to remind me that I was ungrateful, a traitor, a bad mother. But while they attacked me, I observed something interesting. Jade continued posting on her social media, photos at expensive restaurants, at spas and clothing stores, smiling, posing, acting as if her life was perfect. Buying peace for my soul. Sometimes you have to step away from negativity to shine. That was one of her posts, with a photo of her drinking wine in an elegant setting. 120 likes. Comments from her friends telling her how strong she was, how inspiring, how brave. And I thought about the irony, how the negativity she mentioned was me, her mother, the woman who sacrificed everything for her. Now I was negativity to be avoided. But I kept watching. I kept taking screenshots of every post, every comment, every display of her luxury life paid for with my money. One afternoon, while they were out, Attorney Reed called. Ms. Johnson, I have news. Your daughter's attorney filed a response to our lawsuit. They deny everything. They say you gave the money voluntarily as a gift, that you signed all the documents consciously, and that you are now regretful and want to recover what you already gave away. That was expected. What happens next? Now comes the discovery phase. Both parties present everything we have: documents, testimonies, evidence. Then the judge decides if there is enough of a case to go to trial. How long does that take? 3 or 4 months, minimum. But, Ms. Johnson, I have to tell you something important. Your daughter's lawyer contacted me. He wants to negotiate an out-of-court settlement. What kind of settlement? They offer to return $20,000 to you in exchange for you withdrawing the lawsuit and signing a document waiving any future rights to the property. $20,000 out of the $50,000 I put in? Not even half. Exactly. It's a low offer, insulting even, but it's something, and it would avoid years of litigation, stress, and legal fees. No, I don't accept. I want everything that belongs to me or my rights to the house. I will not accept less. I understand. I just wanted you to know there's an offer on the table. But if you want to move forward, we will continue. We will fight until the end. That's what I want. Until the end. I hung up feeling strong, determined. They thought they could buy my silence with crumbs, that they could offer me a fraction of what they stole, and I would gratefully accept. But they were wrong. That night during dinner, Jade mentioned the settlement as if it were casual conversation. Mom, our lawyer talked to yours. We offered you $20,000 to end all this. You should accept. It's what's best for everyone. I will not accept. I want what is mine. Nothing is yours, Mom. We already told you. That money was a gift, but we're being generous. We're offering you something you don't even have a right to receive. Then why are you offering it if you're so sure I have no right to anything? She fell silent. Marcus intervened. Because we want to end this circus. Because it's embarrassing. Because you're making a fool of yourself. Take the money and leave. Find a place to live and leave us in peace. I'm not leaving, and I won't accept less than I deserve. Jade threw her fork onto her plate. The noise echoed in the silence. You are impossible. You are stubborn and selfish. You've been this way your whole life, always thinking only about yourself. You never cared about anyone else." Her words took my breath away. How could she say that? How could she twist everything that way? Me, who sacrificed my whole life, who gave everything, who never asked for anything in return, and now I was selfish for wanting to recover what they stole from me. I didn't answer. I got up from the table, put my plate away, and went up to my room, because I knew that if I stayed, I would say things I might regret, things that could be used against me. The following weeks were more of the same, them trying to pressure me, trying to make me drop the lawsuit, threatening to kick me out, to cut off utilities, to make my life miserable. And meanwhile, Jade continued on social media, posting about her perfect life, about how she had learned to set boundaries, to protect her mental peace, to distance herself from toxic people. I've learned I don't owe anyone anything, not even family. My mental health comes first, and if that means cutting ties, then ties are cut without guilt, without regrets. That post got 200 likes. Her friends commented on how proud they were of her, how strong, how mature. And I wondered if they knew the truth, if they knew the toxic person she was talking about was her mother, the woman who gave her life. But I kept going. I kept gathering evidence. I kept working with my attorney. I kept preparing for what was to come because I knew this wasn't over, that the worst was still ahead. And I was right. 3 months after filing the lawsuit, the date for the first court hearing arrived. Attorney Reed had prepared me for this moment. He explained what to expect, how to behave, what to say, and what not to say. But nothing could truly prepare me for what I felt when I saw my own daughter sitting on the other side of the courtroom. I arrived early. I dressed in my best clothes, a simple suit I had bought years ago for Frank's funeral. I carefully combed my hair. I wanted to look respectable, dignified, like someone who tells the truth. Jade arrived with Marcus and her lawyer, Keith Thompson. She wore an expensive dress, designer shoes, perfect makeup. She looked successful, professional, like the victim of a difficult mother, exactly the image she wanted to project. She didn't look at me once when she entered. She acted as if I were invisible, as if I didn't exist, and that hurt more than any insult. The judge entered. We all stood. He was an older man, about 60, with a serious face and thick glasses. He sat down and began to review the case documents. "All right, we are here for a lawsuit for fraud and nullity of documents. Ms. Gloria Johnson versus her daughter, Jade Sterling, and her son-in-law, Marcus Sterling. Attorney Reed, present your case." My attorney stood up. He spoke with a clear, firm voice. He explained how I had sold my house, how I gave $50,000 for the purchase of the new property, how they promised to include me on the deed, how they made me sign documents without properly explaining what they were, how I discovered they planned to sell the house without my knowledge. He presented the evidence, the messages I took from Jade's phone, the documents with inconsistencies, the transfer receipts, everything organized, clear, and compelling. The judge reviewed each document carefully. He took notes. He asked questions. Attorney Reed answered precisely, confidently. I began to feel hope. Then it was Attorney Thompson's turn. He stood up with a confident smile, with calculated movements, as if he already knew he was going to win. "Your Honor, this case is simple. Ms. Gloria Johnson decided to help her daughter with the purchase of a home. She did it voluntarily. No one forced her. She signed all the necessary documents with full awareness of what she was doing. Now she regrets it and wants to recover what she already gave away. That is not fraud. That is buyer's remorse." He presented documents signed by me, papers where I supposedly waived rights to the property. My signature was there, clear, undeniable. I felt dizzy seeing it because I didn't remember signing that. Furthermore, Your Honor, Ms. Johnson has lived on the property without paying rent for 2 years. She has had all the benefits of living in a $500,000 home without contributing to the expenses, and now she has the audacity to sue her own benefactors. Benefactors. That word burned me, as if they had done me a favor, as if I were a beggar grateful for the crumbs they gave me. The judge raised his hand to silence him. Attorney Thompson, I am seeing text messages where your client clearly indicates that she is removing her mother from the title through deception, that she plans to sell the property without her knowledge. How do you explain that? Thompson didn't even flinch. Private conversations, Your Honor, obtained illegally. Ms. Johnson violated my client's privacy by going through her phone without permission. Those messages should not be admitted as evidence. They were obtained by a concerned mother who suspected she was being defrauded. There was no break-in, no theft. She simply checked a phone that was in her own house and found proof of a crime. The judge continued reviewing documents. He asked more questions of both sides. When it was my turn, I responded with a trembling but clear voice. I told my story, how I trusted my daughter, how they tricked me, how I discovered the truth. Jade also spoke with tears in her eyes, her voice breaking. She acted like the hurt daughter, the victim of a manipulative mother who is now trying to extort her. My mother has always been like this, Your Honor, always controlling, always wanting power over my life. We offered her a home, we gave her everything, and now she repays us with this lawsuit, with these horrible accusations. It hurts. It hurts so much that my own mother thinks I'm capable of robbing her. Her performance was perfect. She cried at the right moment. Her voice trembled when it should. She looked at the judge with pleading eyes, and I saw how he watched her, how his expression softened slightly. And in that moment, I understood something. I understood that the truth doesn't always win. Sometimes whoever acts better, whoever lies better, whoever has the better lawyer, that's who wins. The hearing lasted 3 hours. In the end, the judge said he needed time to review all the evidence. He would issue his resolution in 2 weeks, and both parties had to wait for his decision. We left the court in silence. Jade and Marcus left in their new car, a luxury vehicle worth over $50,000, bought after I gave them my money. I left by bus, as always. Attorney Reed accompanied me to the stop. How do you think it went? Well, Ms. Johnson, it went well. We have strong evidence. The judge saw the inconsistencies. He saw the messages. I think we have a chance. But he wasn't sure. I could hear it in his voice, in how he avoided looking directly into my eyes. There was doubt, and that doubt terrified me. The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. The atmosphere at home was unbearable. Jade didn't speak to me at all. Marcus looked at me with pure hatred. I ate in my room. I kept myself locked in most of the time, like a ghost in my own house. But I kept documenting, kept gathering evidence just in case I needed to appeal, in case I had to keep fighting. Then the day arrived. Attorney Reed called me early in the morning. Ms. Johnson, the judge has issued his resolution. My heart stopped. I waited. The seconds felt like hours. We won the first part. The judge determined that there is sufficient evidence of fraud. He ordered a deeper investigation. And best of all, he ordered that any attempt to sell the property be frozen until the case is completely resolved. I couldn't believe it. I had won something. Not everything, but something. The judge had believed me. He had seen the truth. What exactly does that mean? It means your daughter cannot sell the house. She cannot make any move with the property without court approval, and it means we are going to a full trial. That's where we will fight for the nullity of the documents and the return of your money. It was a small victory, but it was a victory. For the first time in months, I felt something close to hope. When Jade received the notification that afternoon, her reaction was explosive. I heard screams from my room, things breaking, curses. Marcus trying to calm her. She was out of control. I walked down the stairs. I needed to see her face. I needed to see that she realized she wasn't going to get away with it so easily. She was in the living room with papers scattered everywhere, her face red, her fists clenched. This is your fault. All of this is your fault. Now we can't sell. We can't do anything with this house because of you. It's my house too. I put my money here, and I won't let you sell it without getting back what is mine. I hate you. I hate you so much. I wish you never came to live here. I wish you had stayed in your old house and left us in peace. I was in my house. You convinced me to sell it. You asked me for the money. You promised me this would be my house too, and you lied, so don't tell me it's my fault. Go, get out now. I don't want you here. I'm not leaving. The judge ordered that you cannot touch this property. That includes kicking me out. So I'm staying, and I'm going to stay until this is resolved. I walked up the stairs before she could respond. I entered my room, locked the door, and for the first time in months, I allowed myself to smile. I had struck the first real blow. I had shown them that I wasn't going to give up, that I wasn't going to let them walk all over me. And even though there was still a long way to go, even though the fight had just begun, I had won this battle, and that was enough for now. Enough to keep going, enough to keep fighting, enough to believe that maybe, just maybe, justice existed. I sat on my bed, pulled out my phone, and sent a message to Attorney Reed. Thank you for believing me, for fighting for me, for not giving up. His response came quickly. Don't give up, Ms. Johnson. We're just starting and we're going to win. And I believed him because I had no other choice, because I had come too far to turn back, because my dignity, my future, my life, everything depended on this, and I wasn't going to fail. Not now. Not after everything I had been through. Not after having found a strength I didn't know I possessed. This was my fight, and I was going to win it, no matter the cost. The following months were a silent war. Jade and Marcus couldn't kick me out by order of the judge. They couldn't sell the house. They were trapped with me just as much as I was trapped with them, and it drove them crazy. They started with petty, mean tactics, like stopping buying the things I used, my favorite coffee, my brand of bread. They said if I wanted those things, I had to pay for them myself, and I did it without complaining, without giving them the satisfaction of seeing me upset. They cut off the Wi-Fi in my room, claiming it was to save money, but theirs worked perfectly fine. I went to the public library to use the computers when I needed something. I adapted. They changed the locks on some areas of the house, the basement, the garage, the study, as if marking territory, as if telling me, you don't belong here. And I let them do it, because those small battles didn't matter. The big war wasn't over yet. But while they played those childish games, I kept gathering evidence, documenting everything. Every act of hostility, every attempt to make my life difficult, everything was recorded. Everything was useful. Attorney Reed worked on the case. He presented more documents, more evidence. He got testimonies from neighbors who confirmed that I lived there, that I took care of the house, that I had put money into the property. 6 months after the first hearing, the date for the full trial arrived. This time, it would be definitive. The judge would decide whether the documents I signed were valid or if I had been a victim of fraud. He would decide whether I recovered my money or lost everything. The night before, I couldn't sleep. I lay staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the possibilities, what I would do if I won, what I would do if I lost, how I had come to this point in my life. The day of the trial dawned gray and cloudy, as if the sky itself knew what was at stake. I dressed carefully, the same suit I wore to the first hearing. My hands trembled as I fastened the buttons. The courtroom was fuller. This time, there were more people, more witnesses. The case had drawn attention. A mother suing her daughter, a story of family betrayal, the kind of thing people find morbidly fascinating. Jade arrived with a full team, her lawyer, Keith Thompson, 2 legal assistants, Marcus, and his parents, all impeccably dressed, all projecting success, power, money, trying to intimidate with their presence. I arrived alone with Attorney Reed, but I didn't feel small. Not this time, because I knew I had the truth on my side, and that was worth more than all their money. The trial lasted 2 full days. Each side presented its arguments, its witnesses, its evidence. Attorney Thompson brought in experts who analyzed my signature, who testified that it was authentic on all the documents, that I had signed consciously. But Attorney Reed brought in his own experts, graphologists who found inconsistencies, small differences in some signatures, different pressure on the stroke, slightly different angles, enough to create reasonable doubt. I took the stand. I told my complete story, my voice firm, without crying, without dramatizing, just the simple, painful truth. How I trusted my daughter, how they promised to include me in the property, how I discovered they had lied to me. Attorney Thompson interrogated me harshly, trying to make me look like a liar, like a manipulative mother seeking money. He asked me why I didn't read the documents before signing, why I trusted so much, why I regretted it now. I don't regret trusting them. I regret trusting the wrong people. A mother shouldn't have to read the fine print when her daughter asks for help. A mother should be able to trust that her own daughter won't rob her. My answer hung in the silence of the room. I saw some jury members nod slightly. I saw the judge take note of my words. Then it was Jade's turn. She took the stand in her expensive dress, perfect makeup, her prepared performance. She cried. She said she loved me, that she never meant to hurt me, that it was all a misunderstanding. I just wanted to help my mom, Your Honor, to offer her a home, but she is very controlling. She wants to have power over everything. She signed those documents freely, and now that things didn't go her way, she's punishing us with this lawsuit. Her voice broke at the right moments. Her tears fell when they should. It was a masterful performance, and I saw how some in the room were moved, how they looked at her with sympathy. But then Attorney Reed did something brilliant. He projected the messages Jade had sent onto a large screen, the conversations where she planned to remove me from the title, where she called me a problem, where she mocked how easy it was to trick me. Ms. Sterling, can you explain these messages? Here it says verbatim, "My mom is so naive, she signs everything I put in front of her." Those are your words, correct? The color drained from Jade's face. She looked for help from her lawyer, but Thompson could only object, claiming the messages had been obtained illegally. The judge had already admitted the evidence. It was too late to stop him. I was angry. I was frustrated. You didn't just say it in anger. You wrote it, you thought it, and more importantly, you executed it. You carried out a plan to defraud your own mother. It wasn't fraud. It was a gift that she now wants back. A gift that you plan to secure through deception. A gift from which you plan to remove your mother without her knowledge to then sell the property. That, Ms. Sterling, is not a gift. That is theft. Jade didn't know how to respond. She fell silent, looking at her lawyer, searching for the right words, but she didn't find them because there were no words that could explain what she had done. The trial continued. More witnesses, more documents, more arguments from both sides. But I knew the crucial moment had passed. When Jade couldn't explain those messages, when she was exposed in front of everyone, the judge called a recess to deliberate. 3 hours that felt like 3 years. I waited on a bench outside the courtroom. Attorney Reed tried to calm me, to give me hope, but I was beyond hope. I was in a place of acceptance, ready for whatever came next. Finally, we were called back. Everyone took their places. The judge entered. His expression was serious, impossible to read. I have reviewed all the evidence presented by both parties. I have listened to the testimonies. I have analyzed the documents, and I have come to a conclusion. The silence in the room was absolute. No one breathed. No one moved. I find that there is sufficient evidence of fraud, that Ms. Gloria Johnson was misled by false promises into surrendering her money, that she signed documents without a full understanding of their implications, and that there was deliberate intent to exclude her from the rights to the property she helped purchase. My heart started beating faster. Attorney Reed squeezed my hand. Therefore, I order the following. The documents signed by Ms. Johnson, waiving her rights, are null and void. Ms. Johnson is entitled to either 50% of the property or, failing that, the full reimbursement of the $50,000 she contributed, plus accrued interest, which totals another $15,000, a total of $65,000. I had won. After months of fighting, of humiliation, of doubt, I had won. Justice existed after all. Furthermore, I order that Ms. Jade Sterling and Mr. Marcus Sterling pay Ms. Gloria Johnson's legal costs and impose a penalty of $10,000 for intentional fraud against a vulnerable family member. I heard a choked cry behind me. It was Jade. Her face had lost all color. Marcus held her arm. Both of them looked devastated. The parties have 30 days to comply with this order, or property will be subject to seizure. Case closed. The sound of the gavel resonated like thunder, and with that sound, everything ended. I had won. I had recovered my dignity, my money, my life. I walked out of the court with my head held high. Attorney Reed congratulated me, hugged me, celebrating the victory, but I felt strangely empty. Because yes, I had won money, I had won justice, but I had lost my daughter, and that loss hurt more than all the money in the world. The 30 days the judge gave them to pay passed in unbearable tension. Jade and Marcus had to take out a loan, sell their new car, empty their savings accounts, all to raise the $75,000, $65,000 for me, $10,000 penalty to the state. I continued living in the house during that time, but it was different now. Now I had power. Now they had to treat me carefully, because the judge had made it clear that any act of hostility could result in more sanctions. We didn't speak. We crossed paths in the hallways like ghosts, each in our own world, waiting for this nightmare to end, although for each of us, the nightmare meant something different. The day I received the check was strange. There was no ceremony, no words. Attorney Thompson came personally. He handed me the check for $65,000, more than what I had originally lost. I took it with hands that no longer trembled, that no longer doubted. "Thank you, attorney." He just nodded. He looked tired, defeated, as if this battle had cost him more than just time and effort. When he left, I looked at the check for a long time. This piece of paper represented my victory, my justice, but it also represented the definitive end of my relationship with my daughter. Because after this, there was no going back. There was no way to repair what had been broken. That afternoon, I called a real estate agent. I asked her to help me look for a small place, a one-bedroom apartment. Something simple, something mine, something no one could take away from me. In 2 weeks, I found the perfect place. An apartment in an older but well-maintained building. It had a small kitchen, a full bathroom, a living room with a large window that let in the sun, and a tiny balcony where 2 pots fit. It cost $250,000. I bought it outright. No mortgage, no debt. Completely mine, in my name, with deeds that I reviewed line by line with my own attorney before signing. On moving day, I hired 2 men to help me. I didn't have many things. My clothes, my books, my photos, the box with important documents, the balcony plants I had cared for years, the ceramic mug Frank gave me. That was all. Jade didn't come out of her room when I left. There was no goodbye, no last hug, no words of reconciliation, just silence. A heavy silence that said more than 1,000 words. Marcus was in the living room when I brought down my last box. He looked at me with something that might have been regret. Or maybe it was just relief that I was finally leaving. "Gloria, I'm sorry about everything." Those were the only words he spoke to me in months. I didn't respond. Why would I say I forgave him, that everything was fine, when nothing was fine, when it would never be fine again? I just nodded and walked out that door for the last time. My new apartment was small, silent, empty, but it was mine. I spent the first night sitting on the floor, still without furniture, a cup of hot tea in my hands, looking out the window at the city lights. And I cried. I cried for everything I had lost, for the daughter I thought I had, for the family that never truly existed, for the years wasted believing in empty promises. I cried until there were no more tears, until the pain turned into something more manageable, something I could live with. The following months were about rebuilding. I bought simple furniture, a bed, a small table, 2 chairs, a comfortable armchair for reading. Nothing expensive, nothing ostentatious, just what was needed to live with dignity. I used some of the leftover money to take a baking class, something I always wanted to do but never had time for. I learned to make cakes, cookies, artisanal bread, and I discovered I had a talent for it. I started selling my products to neighbors, to little shops in the neighborhood. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was mine, earned with my own effort, without depending on anyone, without owing favors to anyone. One afternoon, while watering my plants on the balcony, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, but something told me to do it. "Mom?" Jade's voice hit me like a punch to the stomach. I hadn't spoken to her in 8 months, since the day I left their house. "Hello, Jade." Silence on the other end. Heavy breathing, as if she was searching for the right words. "I just wanted you to know that Marcus and I are getting a divorce. He blames me for everything that happened, for losing the money, for the embarrassment, for everything, and I'm all alone, Mom. Everyone turned their backs on me." Her voice cracked. She started to cry, and part of me, that part that will always be her mother, wanted to comfort her. It wanted to tell her that everything would be okay, that I forgave her, that we could start over. But another part of me, the part that had been betrayed, robbed, humiliated, that part stood firm. "I'm sorry for what you're going through, Jade. I really am sorry, but I can't be your support right now, not after everything." "But you're my mom. You're all I have." "And you were my daughter. You were all I had, and you stole from me. You betrayed me. You made me feel worthless. So no, I can't be what you need right now. Maybe someday, but not now. Mom, please." "Take care, Jade. I truly wish you the best, but I need time. A lot of time." I hung up before she could respond, before my resolve could weaken. I turned off the phone and stood there, trembling, crying, but also feeling strong, because I had set a boundary, because I had chosen my own peace over guilt. More months passed. Autumn turned into winter, winter into spring. Life continued. I made new friends in the building, women my age, widows, divorcees, women with their own stories of pain and survival. We got together for tea on Thursdays, shared recipes, laughed, lived. One April afternoon, I was on my balcony watering the plants when I saw something that made me smile. One of the succulents I had brought from Jade's house had bloomed. A small, pink, delicate flower. It had survived the transplant, the change, and now it was blooming again in its own space, in its own soil, at its own pace. And I realized that I was like that plant. I had been ripped out of what I thought was my home. I had been hurt, almost destroyed. But I survived. I adapted. And now I was blooming again in my own space, on my own terms. That night, I prepared a simple dinner for myself. Vegetable soup, homemade bread, herbal tea. I sat at my small table by the window. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, appreciating every moment of peace. I didn't have much. I didn't have the big house. I didn't have the perfect family. I didn't have the dreams I once imagined. But I had something better. I had my dignity. I had my peace. I had my freedom. And I had the satisfaction of knowing that I didn't stay silent, that I didn't let them trample me, that I fought for what was mine. Before sleeping, I wrote a few lines in my journal, something I had started doing as therapy. And I wrote the most important truth I had learned throughout this process. I didn't win because I screamed the loudest. I won because I proved the truth. I didn't lower myself to their level. I didn't fill myself with hatred. I simply presented the facts, and that hurt them more than any insult. That is my victory. Not becoming what they were to me, not losing my essence in the process of reclaiming my life. I closed the journal, turned off the light, and lay down in my bed, in my apartment, in my home. And for the first time in years, I slept profoundly, without nightmares, without fear, just peace. Because I had closed that door, not out of revenge, not out of hatred, but out of love. Self-love. The kind of love I had forgotten I deserved. The kind of love no daughter, no son-in-law, no false promise could ever take away from me. And that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. Did you like my story? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story. With love and respect.